On the 11th of February 2026, the airspace above El Paso, Texas went dark without warning. The FAA ordered a 10-day ground stop at El Paso International Airport, halting commercial flights, cargo operations, and general aviation. And nobody outside a small group of federal officials knew why. When the explanation finally came, it shocked the nation. The United States military had fired a laser at Cartel drones crossing into American airspace, and the government wasn't sure if the public should know. What does this mean for border security? And could this technology spark conflicts the world isn't ready for? Join us as we break down what actually happened over El Paso. On the morning of February 11th, federal officials offered a public explanation for the closure. Mexican cartel drones had entered U.S. airspace, prompting swift action from both the Department of Defense and the FAA. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth backed that account, saying that federal agencies had acted swiftly to address the cartel threat. But within hours, the story was already getting more complicated. Congressional sources told reporters they had been informed the situation involved not just drones, but balloons, possibly party balloons, drifting across the border, and that the laser test may have been planned in advance rather than a direct response to an active incursion. Representative Veronica Escobar, whose district covers El Paso, was direct. The information coming from the federal government did not add up. What everyone agreed on was the most important detail. The Pentagon had tested a military laser designed to shoot down drones near one of the most densely populated border cities in the United States. The FAA had responded by shutting down the city's entire airspace for what it called special security reasons. And the system prompting all of this had been developed specifically to counter one of the fastest growing and most underreported threats at the southern border. The drone army that CJNG and other Mexican cartels have been building and deploying for years. To understand how America got to the point of firing lasers at the border, we have to understand how completely cartels have transformed what a drone is capable of in the hands of a criminal organization. Cartels began using drones for basic surveillance around 2019, deploying small commercial quadcopters to watch for law enforcement, scout crossing points, and track border patrol movements on the American side. That was the entry-level application. In the years since, they have turned the same off-the-shelf technology into something far more dangerous. CJNG, the same organization that ran fentanyl across the border in quantities that were killing over 100,000 Americans a year at the peak of the overdose epidemic, established its own dedicated unit called drone operators. From 2021 to 2025, that unit alone was responsible for roughly 1 in every 5 cartel drone attacks linked to a specific cartel. 42 incidents resulting in 21 deaths, according to a report from the National Counterterrorism Innovation, Technology, and Education Center. More than any other cartel, more than any other criminal organization operating in North America, the tactics CJNG developed went far beyond surveillance. The cartel used explosive-laden drones to carpet bomb rural areas in Michoacán, deliberately targeting civilian populations to drive them out of territory contested with rival groups. Instead of fighting to win the loyalty of local communities, they simply made those communities impossible to live in. In October 2025, CJNG flew a drone loaded with a primitive explosive device, known in Mexico as a potato bomb, directly into the compound of the state prosecutor's office in Tijuana. The facility was heavily protected. The drone didn't care. It flew over the walls into the compound and detonated. Nobody died, but the message was unmistakable. There is no facility, no compound, no position that a wall or a gate or a guard post makes safe from an aircraft that costs a few $100s and requires no pilot on site. By the time the El Paso incident occurred in February 2026, General Gregory Guillo, head of U.S. Northern Command, had already testified before Congress that approximately 1,000 drones cross from Mexico into the United States every single month. Not 100 or a few dozen, 1,000 every month for surveillance against law enforcement and for drug deliveries. The cartels have sourced large agricultural drones from France, capable of carrying significant payloads. They have deployed devices to scramble or interrupt American tracking equipment on the border. And they have sent personnel to Ukraine to train with combat drone operators in real war conditions. At least one Mexican national was investigated by Ukrainian counterintelligence after arriving with false Salvadoran papers and completing training in Lviv, with the explicit goal of bringing FPV drone warfare techniques back to cartel operations in Mexico. FPV drones, first-person view drones, are the same systems that Ukraine and Russia have been using to hunt individual soldiers on the battlefield. They are fast, maneuverable, cheap enough to use as single-use weapons, and guided by a pilot wearing goggles who sees exactly what the drone sees in real time. Once a cartel fighter completes FPV training in an actual shooting war, they bring back expertise that no domestic law enforcement training program can easily replicate. This is the threat environment that the Pentagon's laser was designed to operate in. The system tested at El Paso is a directed energy weapon, a high-powered laser that tracks a drone and destroys it by focusing concentrated energy on its airframe until it fails or ignites. Directed energy weapons have several advantages over conventional counter-drone systems. They fire at the speed of light, which means the targeting problem is simpler than intercepting a moving object with a physical projectile. Each shot costs a fraction of a cent in electricity rather than thousands of dollars for a kinetic interceptor. And they can engage multiple targets in rapid sequence without the reload time that a physical missile or projectile system requires. The challenge, as the El Paso incident made clear, is that shooting down drones with a laser over a dense urban environment is not a simple proposition. When a drone is destroyed in flight over a city, the debris has to fall somewhere. If that drone is carrying a drug payload, and many of the drones crossing the border are doing exactly that, destroying it in the air risks dispersing the cargo across a residential area. A drone loaded with fentanyl, destroyed at altitude over a neighborhood, becomes an entirely different kind of problem. The Brookings Institution noted specifically that the dispersion of synthetic opioids through a law enforcement intercept could result in lethal poisonings. There is also the international dimension. Debris falling across the border into Mexico creates legal and diplomatic complications that the State Department then has to manage. A professor at the Naval Postgraduate School focused on border security described the risk plainly. There is real potential for a miscalculation that creates an international incident. These are not hypothetical concerns. They are the exact tensions that produced the conflict between the Pentagon and the FAA on February 11th. According to 3 people familiar with the situation who spoke to the Associated Press, the FAA wanted to coordinate the laser test carefully to ensure commercial aircraft safety. A meeting was already scheduled later in the month to work out exactly those details. The Pentagon decided to go ahead and test the system anyway. The FAA responded by shutting down El Paso's airspace entirely, not for the originally stated 10 days, but for less than 8 hours in practice after Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy confirmed there were no active threats to commercial travel and the restriction was lifted. The episode exposed something that the rapid deployment of new counter-drone technology at the border has been producing more broadly. The federal government's left hand and right hand are not always talking to each other, and the communities living under the airspace in question are often the last to be informed. El Paso Mayor Renard Johnson confirmed that the city received no advance notice. The airport received no advance notice. The congressional representative covering the district received no advance notice. In a city of nearly 700,000 people sitting directly on the international border, a military laser was deployed, and the entire airport was shut down before anyone in the local government was told it was happening. Congress has been working to address the broader legal framework around counter-drone operations at the border. The Safer Skies Act, included in the 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, signed into law in December, expanded the authority to disable or destroy drones beyond the federal level for the first time. Under previous law, only federal law enforcement had legal authority to take down drones. The new law authorizes trained state and local law enforcement to protect public gatherings, critical infrastructure, and prisons against drone threats. That expansion of authority reflects how seriously Congress has come to view the scale of the problem. 1,000 drones a month crossing the border is not a niche law enforcement issue. It is a persistent national security challenge that local communities are living inside every day, and the legal tools available to address it have lagged behind the technology driving it. CJNG's drone capability did not emerge in isolation. The Sinaloa Cartel began deploying FPV drones of its own by September 2025, citing CJNG's success as the model they were replicating. As one academic observer put it, "In the criminal world, there is no intellectual property. Once something works, everyone copies it." The border drone threat is not a single cartel problem. It is becoming an industry standard for criminal organizations operating anywhere near the US-Mexico border. And the pace of capability development is being accelerated by the availability of combat-proven drone warfare techniques imported directly from the most intense land war in Europe since the Second World War. The laser test at El Paso is the American military's answer to that trajectory. Electronic jamming systems can disrupt drone communication links. Net firing systems can physically capture smaller drones. But all of those systems have limitations in an urban border environment where civilian air traffic and an international boundary constrain what can be done and where. A directed energy laser offers precision that most alternatives cannot match. The ability to engage a specific target without the collateral effects of a conventional interceptor, if the conditions are right and the coordination between agencies is what it needs to be. That coordination is clearly still a work in progress. What the El Paso incident demonstrated is that the technology is further ahead than the procedures for using it. The military has a laser that works. The question of when and how and with what advance notice it gets used over an American city is something federal agencies are still working out in real time, with local communities bearing the consequences of those unresolved disagreements. CJNG lost its founder 11 days after that laser fired over El Paso. The cartel that built the most sophisticated drone warfare unit in criminal history is now fighting a succession crisis, a territorial war with every rival organization that smells weakness, in a US-Mexico intelligence partnership that has demonstrated it can reach targets previously considered untouchable. Whether the cartel's drone program survives the turmoil intact, and whether the lessons it developed have already spread far enough that losing CJNG's leadership doesn't matter, will be one of the defining questions of the border security picture in the months ahead. For the first time, the United States Navy unleashed a weapon that has made drug cartels tremble in the Pacific. Hidden for years under top-secret programs, the laser system Helios strikes faster than any missile and costs mere dollars per shot. Could this technology finally turn the tide against billion-dollar smuggling networks? And what shocking footage reveals the true power of lasers at sea? Will the cartels ever recover? Join us as we find out what happens when the United States Navy's laser weapons go to battle against the cartels. The USS Preble was cutting through the Pacific in October 2024, carrying a weapon no warship had ever tested in real-world conditions. Buried under layers of secrecy sat the Navy's new high-energy laser with integrated optical dazzler and surveillance system, known simply as Helios. This was not just another piece of military hardware. It was about to prove itself in action for the first time. Naval intelligence had been following strange activity near the California coast. Small, fast boats were moving drugs at night, and whenever Coast Guard cutters moved in, drones suddenly appeared overhead. These weren't amateurs trying their luck. Cartel groups had turned smuggling into coordinated military-style operations. Their speedboats could push past 60 miles an hour while carrying loads of cocaine worth more than $20 million. Meanwhile, the drones circling above provided real-time video to handlers on shore. The result was that the cartels always seemed one step ahead, making traditional interdictions nearly useless. That was about to change. With Helios on board, the Navy no longer had to waste $4.3 million Standard Missile-6 interceptors on drones that cost only a few $1,000s each. Instead, the laser system could fire at a cost of about $13 per shot. The weapon drew 120 kilowatts directly from the ship's own electrical system, removing the need to carry ammunition or resupply mid-mission. The way it works is both simple and extraordinary. Fiber optic cables generate separate beams of light that are combined into one powerful stream. This method, called spectral beam combining, produces temperatures hot enough to burn through a steel engine or set a drone's body ablaze in seconds. Unlike missiles or bullets that travel through the air, laser energy moves at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second. Against Cartel speedboats, this meant instant results. Many of the engines contained aluminum parts that vaporized under the heat. Crews often abandoned ship the moment they saw smoke rising from the stern. The drugs, however, stayed on board, making it easier for authorities to recover the evidence and cripple billion-dollar trafficking routes. The system tracks its targets through a mix of thermal sensors and radar. Unlike conventional weapons, it never runs out of ammunition. That made it particularly effective against the drone swarms the cartels had started using to overwhelm border patrols. What once required multiple ships and costly interceptors could now be handled in seconds by a single vessel equipped with Helios. There were limits, however. The weather along the Gulf Coast sometimes made things tricky. Heavy moisture in the air could scatter the beam, forcing operators to adjust power or wait for conditions to improve. Smugglers were quick to adapt, timing large-scale runs to coincide with storm seasons when laser weapons were less reliable. Even with these challenges, the Navy is already looking ahead. Plans are in motion to expand Helios to 300 kilowatts for use on future DDGX destroyers and next-generation frigates. Right now, only larger ships with advanced power systems can support the huge energy and cooling requirements. Smaller patrol boats, which would benefit greatly, simply don't have the infrastructure to carry the system yet. Helios is also linked to the Aegis combat system, giving ships layered defenses against both air and surface threats. Its optical dazzler offers another option. Instead of destroying a target, it can blind cameras and sensors. That allows intelligence officers to capture cartel data without losing the chance to analyze it. Military leaders see directed energy weapons like Helios as the next step in naval warfare. The cost advantage alone is significant, neutralizing cheap but numerous threats without draining budgets. More importantly, the system keeps crews safe and ensures the Navy maintains control over contested waters. The footage from that October mission remains under wraps, but the signal to cartels and other adversaries is unmistakable. While laser systems at sea reshaped how navies intercept smugglers and drones, the skies required an entirely different kind of breakthrough. The real question became, what happens when the world's most expensive bomber is paired with a weapon that costs less than a cup of coffee to fire? The Northrop Grumman B-2 Spirit, better known as the stealth bomber, carries a staggering price tag of about $2.1 billion per aircraft. Every mission burns through hundreds of thousands of dollars in fuel and support costs before the bomber even releases a single weapon. Conventional precision munitions only add to the expense. Air-to-ground missiles range anywhere from $100,000 to $4 million each. Military leaders started asking how long the United States could afford to fight drawn-out conflicts when opponents were fielding cheap drones and disposable hardware. That concern sparked a quiet but ambitious effort. Defense contractors began working laser technology into existing aircraft under classified upgrade programs. As part of its latest modernization, the B-2 Spirit received experimental laser pods designed to hit both ground targets and airborne threats. Instead of loading heavy racks of missiles or bombs, the system draws power directly from the plane's electrical generators. This cuts down payload weight and removes many of the limits imposed by conventional ordnance. The change in cost was staggering. Each laser shot came in at roughly $15. A bomber that once needed million-dollar cruise missiles to take out hardened targets could now destroy dozens for the cost of a single traditional warhead. For long campaigns against enemies with endless numbers but limited sophistication, the economics suddenly tilted sharply in America's favor. Adversaries, however, did not stand still. Many began deploying large swarms of cheap drones, launching them in the hundreds to overwhelm defenses. Conventional missile batteries quickly ran into a problem. Ammunition ran out fast, and each interceptor missile cost tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Analysts calculated that, over time, enemies could bleed American defenses dry simply by throwing waves of expendable machines into the fight. Laser weapons erase that problem. Because they rely only on power from the aircraft, they can fire continuously without running out of ammunition. As long as the generators keep producing electricity, the beam can keep firing. In practical terms, this gave bombers something close to unlimited ammunition. Nuclear-powered ships and advanced electrical grids provided even greater endurance for extended operations. The combination of the B-2's stealth and its new directed energy weapons created a tactical edge no adversary had faced before. Radar operators might detect the bright streak of a missile launch, but laser strikes left almost no trace, only a brief flash of heat when the target was hit. That meant bombers could destroy multiple threats without giving away their position to nearby defenses. There were limits, of course. Lasers are still shaped by the environment. Dust, moisture, and rain scatter the energy beam and reduce its reach. Mission planners now include detailed weather forecasts in their operational checklists. On clear nights with dry air, the system is at its most lethal. This shift has already begun to influence how money is spent. Budgets that once poured into producing mountains of ammunition are being redirected into developing higher output lasers and more powerful generators to sustain them. The focus is moving from stockpiling shells and missiles to investing in renewable energy systems that can keep weapons firing as long as the plane remains airborne. Bomber crews are also being retrained. Unlike traditional bombs, lasers don't explode on impact. They require steady, precise contact with a target for several seconds. Pilots now practice flying patterns that hold beams on moving objects, while operators train on power management to make sure the weapons never drain the system during intense engagements. The shift represents more than just new technology. Strategists see it as a change in how wars will be fought and financed. Victory in modern conflict depends not only on advanced weapons, but also on the ability to fight for months or years without exhausting resources. With the B-2 Spirit now carrying directed energy systems, the United States military has shown that it is preparing for that future, one where cost-effective firepower and technological superiority go hand in hand. In the Red Sea, Iranian-backed forces discovered a profitable new market when Mexican cartels offered cryptocurrency in exchange for modern weapons. The Houthis, already armed with drones, guided munitions, and electronic warfare systems, found eager buyers in organizations flush with cash from fentanyl sales. With billions generated annually through drug trafficking, cartels could afford battlefield-proven equipment that American law enforcement had never faced at home. The trade was managed through encrypted networks overseen by Iranian Revolutionary Guard officers in Yemen. Cartels supplied chemical precursors for explosives, while in return they received completed drones, radar jammers, and even anti-ship missiles. These deals bypassed black market arms dealers and avoided international sanctions designed to stop dangerous weapons from spreading to non-state actors. By early 2024, Houthis were attacking United States Navy destroyers in the Red Sea with kamikaze drones and cruise missiles. Within months, similar systems surfaced along the Texas border. Border Patrol agents began to encounter drone swarms flying in formation, copying the same tactics seen overseas against commercial shipping. What had once been fast boat smuggling runs evolved into militarized campaigns. Cartels now fielded drones with thermal cameras for surveillance, jammers to cut police radios, and even explosive-laden suicide drones used against rivals. This level of sophistication posed a crisis that ordinary policing could not contain. Iranian advisors deepened the threat by training cartel fighters directly. In camps hidden across Mexico and Central America, former Houthi drone operators taught everything from electronic warfare to coordinated strike tactics. These programs produced a new generation of cartel technicians who could build, maintain, and deploy weapons that rivaled those used in war zones. The network came to light when United States intelligence traced cryptocurrency movements, linking cartel accounts to Middle Eastern operators. Investigators matched payment schedules to known Houthi weapons purchases, proving that American drug demand was indirectly funding militants engaged in live combat with United States forces abroad. Soon, American police and border units began reporting weapons they had never seen outside of combat zones, night vision devices built for the battlefield, encrypted satellite communications, and armor-piercing ammunition. Local shootouts started to resemble clashes in foreign war zones, with gangs wielding tools meant to fight national militaries. Financial assessments confirmed the core problem. Cartels now commanded revenues greater than the defense budgets of many nations. With money on that scale, they could buy nearly any weapon on the global market. This economic power meant that criminal organizations inside the United States borders had the resources of a hostile state, turning a law enforcement challenge into a national security emergency. While Iranian weapons continued moving south through established channels, Mexican cartels were busy building something that caught intelligence agencies completely off guard. The pressing question became, what happens when criminal organizations begin producing military hardware faster than governments can track it? Using just the profits from a single fentanyl shipment valued at around $200 million, cartels set up underground aerospace manufacturing sites. These weren't makeshift workshops or hobbyist drone operations. They were full-scale facilities staffed with engineers who had once worked for legitimate defense contractors. Production lines inside disguised warehouses and abandoned mines were turning out as many as 50 advanced unmanned aerial vehicles every month, hidden from satellite detection by carefully built hangars and underground infrastructure. The Sinaloa cartel also managed to purchase 12 Turkish-made Bayraktar TB2 drones, aircraft already proven on battlefields in Ukraine and Syria. Instead of mounting explosives, cartel technicians reconfigured the payload bays to carry up to 500 pounds of compressed fentanyl. A single flight could deliver enough narcotics to saturate the East Coast drug market for half a year. The cartel's surveillance capacity transformed almost overnight. Persistent drone patrols equipped with thermal sensors and secure communication links provided constant updates on border patrol movements, high-altitude balloon locations, and law enforcement patrol patterns. Coordinated formations used artificial intelligence software originally designed for military swarm tactics, giving cartels real-time command over wide stretches of the border. Materials science also became part of their playbook. Factories began producing airframes out of carbon fiber and other advanced composites, giving drones more speed and endurance compared to aluminum-bodied aircraft. Many suppliers who sold the raw materials assumed they were dealing with ordinary commercial buyers and never questioned the unusual order volumes. Quality standards inside these underground factories rivaled those found in legitimate aerospace production lines. Cartel ingenuity extended into the seas as well. Narco submarines, once crude vessels for smuggling, evolved into autonomous carriers able to launch aerial drones while submerged. This created layered surveillance networks that existing interdiction methods could not detect, much less disrupt. Each submarine carried as many as 20 small drones, each with the endurance to remain airborne for more than 8 hours. Electronic warfare soon entered the picture. During clashes with rivals and law enforcement, cartels began deploying jammers and radar spoofing equipment. These systems disrupted police communications and even interfered with civilian aviation networks during smuggling runs. Much of the hardware and training came directly from Iranian sources, with instructors operating from bases in Central America. Autonomy made the threat even more dangerous. New targeting systems allowed drones to identify and pursue vehicles or people without any human operator in control. Facial recognition programs and vehicle matching algorithms enabled aircraft to track targets across state lines for days at a time. Police suddenly faced flying weapons that behaved more like hunter-killer machines than surveillance tools. By the early 2010s, the global drone market was worth an estimated $42 billion, and cartels were a part of it. Through front companies, they poured money into universities, startups, and artificial intelligence firms. Many researchers never realized their civilian projects were being adapted for cartel weapons programs. With mass production, costs plunged. Each combat-ready drone could be built for under $10,000. That meant a single drug shipment worth $50 million could finance as many as 5,000 drones. This direct link between narcotics profits and weapons development created exponential growth in cartel military strength. For the United States military, few options remained. Conventional airstrikes against these hidden factories risked heavy civilian casualties in densely populated areas. Strategic bombers armed with precision lasers emerged as the only realistic counter. Unlike explosive munitions, directed energy weapons could destroy underground entrances, manufacturing equipment, and command centers with surgical accuracy, carrying out strikes inside the United States territory without triggering the kind of devastation that traditional weapons would cause. Cartel breakthroughs in drone technology grabbed headlines, but America's investment in laser weapons gave the United States a clear advantage. Unlike missiles or conventional guns, directed energy systems have a major edge. They perform best in the very conditions that smugglers depend on. In many ways, nature itself has become an ally for the United States' defense. Could the very skies the cartels rely on actually be working against them? By 2023, military planners had figured out how to use weather and air conditions to know when lasers would work best. Some people pointed out possible limits, but in fact, these conditions usually gave the United States an advantage over the cartels. Clear skies, low humidity, and stable temperatures, the most common conditions along key border areas, allow lasers to strike targets with pinpoint accuracy, almost instantly. The deserts of Arizona and New Mexico tell a similar story. Cartels counted on heat to shield their drones, but the clear desert air helps lasers travel unimpeded. With minimal moisture or clouds, targets can be disabled long before they cross into United States territory. In this setting, dry landscapes became a natural ally for defense forces. Altitude works similarly. The higher a drone flies, the thinner the air becomes, meaning there's less to block or scatter the laser beam. This allows military lasers to stay tightly focused, deliver more energy to their target, and hit with devastating precision. Ironically, cartel drones trying to escape by flying higher only made them more visible to United States sensors, making it easier for operators to track, target, and disable them. The weather could pose a challenge. Fog, dust, heavy storms, or sudden rain showers can scatter light and slightly reduce a laser's effectiveness. Yet the United States systems are built to handle these obstacles. Satellites and radar provide real-time tracking, while conventional interceptors back up the lasers when nature tries to interfere. On most days, clear skies, dry air, and stable temperatures give American defenses a natural advantage. By the end of the day, the cartel's massive investments in drones rarely paid off. Instead of shielding them, the atmosphere often magnified the effectiveness of the United States' lasers. Sunlight, desert air, and thin, high-altitude conditions became silent allies, turning the sky into a vast, invisible extension of America's shield, a force the cartels could neither hide from nor fight. The cartels thought their drones and smuggling tricks gave them an advantage, but the United States Navy's laser weapon changed that. Quiet, accurate, and powerful, it turns the skies the cartels counted on into a place they can't control. After years of speculation, people around the world can finally see the United States Navy's laser weapon in action against cartel operations. For the first time, the power, speed, and precision of this technology are on full display. It shows how modern weapons can stop threats almost instantly without the need for traditional explosives or bullets. The lesson is clear. The future of fighting crime and warfare has arrived, and the balance of power has shifted in favor of those who can control the skies. The future of warfare and military defense has long been discussed around air superiority. Hence, in a global arms race, in a bid to beat the other world powers to the punch, the United States military created an air monster, the AH-6, capable of landing on the most unforgiving terrains with the primary function of providing direct air support and armed reconnaissance. How effective was this tiny chopper on its first mission? Where does this breakthrough position the United States defense in the world rank? Join us as we discuss the use of the AH-6 Little Bird by the United States' Special Forces. Aside from force, which is an inevitability in military warfare, intelligence gathering and stealth have been priceless tools of war deployed at the warring country's discretion. However, unlike force, stealth isn't easily achieved, as it not only takes years of practice and willingness to break a few rules of engagement in war, but also requires top-shelf technology, especially in aircraft. Over the years, companies like Boeing and Northrop Grumman have proven to be useful assets to the development of the United States defense, with popular inventions like the different variations of the unmanned combat aerial vehicles, otherwise called the UCAV, including the Boeing X-45, Grumman's X-47B, and the MQ-25 Stingray. While these heavy-duty stealth demons cannot be overlooked, the invention of the AH-6 chopper made its way back into the spotlight when Boeing completed the maiden flight of the Royal Thai Army's future AH-6 Little Bird light attack helicopter in Mesa, Arizona. The advent of these recent tests piqued the interest of Americans, and the AH-6 was back in the news. Talking about cutting-edge technology developed out of necessity, the AH-6 Little Bird falls right in that category. It was built for its stealth attack capabilities to equip an elite team in the United States military called Special Forces. Important missions requiring stealth and specific combat training are delegated to the Special Forces team, who are equipped with cutting-edge technology, including night goggles, suppressed machine guns, and stealth aircraft like the AH-6. While the AH-6 has had its name in the American and global military landscape for quite a while, it isn't an invention magically spawned out of a vacuum. The AH-6 was modeled after the MH-6M, nicknamed Killer Bird, probably not a subtle enough name for a special forces team whose whole mission is built around stealth and discretion. However, its effectiveness in battle cannot be undermined. The MH-6M Little Bird is rooted deeply in the history of America's warfare. It is a light helicopter used in the United States for special operations or special ops, which are military activities conducted, according to the Northern Alliance Treaty Organization, by specially designated, organized, selected, trained, and equipped forces using unconventional techniques and modes of deployment. It was originally based on the OH-6A, which was started in 1960 when the United States Army issued Technical Specification 153 for a project called Light Observation Helicopter, with a propensity for carrying out stealth missions, including reconnaissance, intelligence gathering, casualty evacuation, and attack missions. The Light Observation Helicopter program was created to replace the aging Bell OH-13 used in the Army. And just like that, the United States effectively created intense competition between aircraft companies, leading to the first ever model, the Model 369, later referred to as the YH-06A, a name designated to it by the Department of Defense in 1962. The YH-06A was created by Hughes Tool Company's Aircraft Division, a major American aerospace and defense contract company owned by Howard Hughes. Although his prototype was the first to rewatch the United States Army, they were willing to wait for other competitors who had vested interests in serving their country and enriching their own company. It was the perfect blend of capitalism and patriotism melded into one. Surely nothing drives quality supply more than that. In their patience, 4 other prototypes were built and sent to them, with each one fitted with a 252 shaft horsepower, which is equivalent to 188 kilowatt Allison T6305A engine. Fairchild, Hiller, and Bell sent a combined 10 prototypes, which were in direct competition with Hughes's 5 prototypes. After the back and forth, Hughes's prototype was selected as the winner, making him the pioneer of the very first light helicopter under the Light Observation Helicopter program. At first, the military sought out a production of 714 of Hughes's prototype, but they eventually increased it to 1,300. The helicopter was unarmed, as it was only built for observation and stealth reconnaissance missions. Hence, they were fitted with benches on the sides to carry at least 3 operators on each side. While the unarmed version sounded like a fantastic idea at the time, the military found a different use for the lightweight chopper, enforcing the birth of the AH-6 gunship variant. If there is one thing the covert operations and special forces specialize their modus operandi on, it is complete discreetness and the ability to utilize stealth, and the AH-6 provided them with exactly that. The AH-6 was the perfect stealth operator. It had a small size to go along with its being extremely lightweight, in contrast to other helicopters like the MH-60 Black Hawk. The AH-6 variant of the MH-6 Little Bird was born out of a failure that has haunted America's past and present, the infamous Operation Eagle Claw. The United States has always played big brother to numerous countries across the continents, including Africa, North America, Europe, and even Asia. However, in some cases, insurrections arise and there is suddenly a need for military intervention. Such was the case on November 4, 1979, when 52 American diplomats and citizens were taken hostage at the United States Embassy in Tehran, Iran, by a group of Iranian college students who belonged to the Muslim student followers of the Imam's line, a group who supported the Iranian Revolution. As expected, the United States tried to utilize diplomatic relations, but it was a futile effort and a waste of time as they still couldn't secure the hostages. The then President of the United States, James Jimmy Carter, considered the hostage situation an act of war and acted accordingly. In preparation for the military intervention, 8 helicopters, specifically the United States Navy's 53D Sea Stallion, were sent to the staging area known as Desert 1 for a test flight before being deployed for the mission. While the 53D Sea Stallion was being prepared for the mission, only 5 returned from the staging area in operation-ready condition. The president was then advised to abort the mission since they had less than 6 battle-ready choppers, while the last 5 choppers headed out of Desert One. One of the remaining helicopters crashed into a transport aircraft that contained both servicemen and jet fuel, resulting in a fire that ended the lives of 8 servicemen, a sad day for America, which was described as an act of God by Ayatollah Ruhollah. This humiliating defeat of the Sea Stallion during the 1980 Operation Eagle Claw, resulting in a loss of patriotic American lives, exposed the limitations of the American Army helicopter fleet. It geared the United States towards a sad reality that the Army lacked aircraft and crews who were trained and prepared to perform special operations missions. The realization of a lack of preparation for the worst-case scenario birthed the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, commonly referred to as SOAR, also known as Nightwalkers. The task force was given the responsibility to carry out missions, which included attacks and reconnaissance missions. The decision-makers who created this task force very much recognized the importance of having a much lighter chopper, which would not only be effective in ferrying soldiers, but also good enough to stealthily insert and remove operators on mission grounds before detection. Their need resonated with Hughes's OH-6 Achios, a single-engine light helicopter birthed from the Light Observation Helicopter Program. The OH-6 Achios got the nickname Little Bird when it was compared to other available aircraft of its ilk, including the UH-60A and the CH-47C. Owing to its recency at the time, not many had flown a helicopter that small or of that weight. Hence, rather than base it on experience, selected pilots were sent to the Mississippi Army National Guard's Army Aviation Support Facility at Gulfport for 2 weeks of qualification training, then sent to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, for 2 weeks of mission training. Fast forward to the following 2 weeks, and the pilots were ready to have a crack at flying the lightweight beast. Their readiness coincided fatefully with the United States' timetable for having a second attempt at rescuing the hostages in Tehran, Iran, where former President Carter failed. The new operation was tagged Operation Credible Sport. While they prepared for a new military intervention in the second half of 1980, diplomatic relations won this time as Iran released the hostages in 1981, jeopardizing the need for a team to pilot the OH-6 Achios. However, the United States chose to keep the team together. You never know when you just might need them. However, as evolution and time set in, a new hunger for war required a different course of meal. Hence, the OH-6 Achios had to be remodeled to fit recent warfare. The OH-6 Achios' airframe was remodeled to create the MH-6, which only served the purpose of ferrying soldiers and operators for reconnaissance missions or for simply extracting and inserting soldiers on the mission ground. While the AH-6, remodeled from the OH-6 Achios, was armed with gunships for missions that required attack and stealth. While the OH-6 Achios had fully evolved into the MH-6 and AH-6, its real test awaited on the battlefield. Luckily, a country with the size and ambition of the United States is never short of failed diplomatic relationships every now and then, resulting in a need to resort to force sometimes with biblical implications. And in 1993, the need arose with Operation Urgent Fury in Grenada. For the first time, Task Force 160 was called into overt combat action, and they delivered the most devastating blow during Operation Urgent Fury. On D-Day, the two newly evolved OH-6 Achios MH-6 and AH-6 were flown to the Eastern Caribbean from a base in North Carolina, where they were discreetly transported inside a Lockheed C-130 Hercules, an American 4-engine turboprop military transport aircraft designed and built by Lockheed, capable of using unprepared runways for takeoffs and landings. Upon landing on the island's southwestern coast, the two AH-6 were removed from the belly of the beast and set off on a mission for the capital of St. George to attack Fort Rupert, the permanent Grenadian military headquarters at the time. The little birds were piloted head-on into the thick of things and straight into the action. However, the Grenadian defenses at their headquarters just didn't budge. The little bird found them so formidable that they were returned to base in a short span of 10 minutes. Their quick evacuation from the war created a vile rumor in the media, with reports stating that a variant of the OH-6 Achios was shot out of the sky during the war. Reports from the United States pawned the news off as a vile rumor from the opposition, trying to verbally jeopardize the military might of the United States. Although the AH-6 might have been found wanting in war, The MH-6 was utilized for other missions during Operation Urgent Fury. It was used to carry wounded servicemen, to get help from the medical team, and also to conduct an unscripted search and rescue for servicemen who had been shot down by the stiff anti-aircraft of the Grenadian Air Force. While this was a failed battle test for the OH-6 Akayus AH-6 variant, the United States made sure that the aircraft was not listed in the public inventory of the United States military at the time. Hence, no one could tie the failed experiment to them at the time. However, the existence of the secret aviation aircraft came to bear after the war ended. While Operation Urgent Fury's failure registered so deeply in the hearts of the United States defense, they understood the limitations of the AH-6 and just how far it could go and the missions it was capable of. Although the limitations were registered, they needed a win to show their strengths, and Operation Prime Chance was the perfect battle to finally unleash the real strength of the AH-6 and the reconnaissance ability of the MH-6. Operation Prime Chance is nothing short of the classic Iran-Iraq clash, where they targeted each other's oil shipments when they passed the Persian Gulf. The United States' military might, Big Brother tendencies, and good diplomatic relationships brought Kuwait to their doorstep, seeking the help of the United States and asking them to use their flag on their oil shipment to avoid a bombing from the Iraq-Iran ongoing war when they crossed the Persian Gulf. Kuwait supported Iraq financially during the war. Hence, Iran, seeking their pound flesh, attacked every tanker under the Kuwaiti flag, using either small boats, mines, or anti-ship missiles. To this effect, the United States deployed Navy warships as escorts for a Kuwait oil tanker named Al-Raqqa, but renamed SS Bridgerton to put it under America's protection. However, the SS Bridgerton still struck a naval mine, reflecting to the United States that more firepower and reconnaissance were needed to really protect any oil tanker crossing the Straits of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf. Therefore, they deployed the AH-6 and the MH-6 aircraft as counter-surveillance and attack measures. The AH-6 was given twice its original responsibility, which was always to attack since it was loaded with gunships. However, it was also deployed for both surveillance and patrol while working in tandem with other United States Special Operations units. During surveillance at 10 p.m., the two AH-6 Little Birds found the Iran Ager, an amphibious landing ship built by the Japanese, but used to lay naval mines by Iran in the Persian Gulf to distort oil exportation. Since the MH-6 carried forward-looking infrared, it had an excellent capability to detect and identify targets. And once it identified the Iranians who were laying the mines from the landing shop, the AH-6 opened fire, causing them to abandon the ship and the United States to capture it. And for the first time in a sensitive mission, the AH-6 just gave the United States a big win, cementing its place as an important part of the United States' history of diplomatic relations and warfare. The success of the AH-6 and the MH-6 in Operation Prime Chance not only showcases the strength of the OH-6 Kayas's variants, but also highlights their versatility and importance to the United States defense. However, in 1984, Hughes's aircraft company was taken over by Douglas McDonnell, who had it for 13 years before merging with Boeing and practically selling the aircraft division of the company to them. Boeing came in with a plan to take over the aviation space, and they got to it from day one, with an attitude to never leave any stone unturned. They recognized that the contemporary combat landscape has evolved. Hence, the tools to practice the trade must do the same. It is rarely news to anyone that warfare and technology over the years have reached an all-time high, with unmanned battle drones coming into the fray, while reducing the chance of fatality drastically. Hence, Boeing's decision to remodel and repurpose the AH-6 and MH-6 caught no one by surprise. In 2004, Boeing created a variant of the AH-6 that they named the Unmanned Little Bird, or ULB in popular parlance. The Unmanned Little Bird was based on the design specifications of the MD-500 family, which Boeing built from a civilian MD-530F. Its first flight was recorded on September 8, 2004, and made its first autonomous flight with safety pilot on October 16, 2004. The safety pilot procedure was ensured to create a safe testing environment such that there was a trained pilot in the Unmanned Little Bird who had access and control to the cockpit and could take charge immediately at the first of trouble or in emergency situations. Boeing's plan was like none anyone had seen before. They wanted to up the ante from the modus operandi of the 90s to unimaginable heights. Their production of the unmanned Little Bird was also a precursor to introducing and demonstrating the capability of a whole new different air beast, the AH-64 Apache. The experiment was rather straightforward. It was a test to see if the unmanned Little Bird could be controlled remotely from a manned aircraft like the Apache flying right next to it. Eyebrows were raised in doubts, but Boeing was ready to rumble, and this time they pulled out all the stops to make it work. The Apache was used to remotely control the ULB's weapons payload as a part of Boeing's Airborne Manned/Unmanned System Technology Demonstration, otherwise called A-MUS-D program. On the very first test, the Apache Longbow was grounded while the unmanned Little Bird went airborne and was several miles away, while equipped with some Hellfire missiles. When the tester fired the missile from that distance, no one thought it would work except Boeing, of course. However, it did. Both aircraft were equipped with tactical data link equipment manufactured by L3 Technologies. Boeing understood the importance of having the flight completely unmanned with the safety pilot off. Hence, they put together their data from the test flights and had to go at it again, this time without safety on. So on June 30, 2006, from the United States Army's Yuma Proving Ground, the Little Bird flew unmanned for over 20 minutes, signifying a success. Following Boeing's success, different variations of the AH-6 have flooded the markets, and some good enough to fly special forces out to Mexico on their mission. The war on drugs in Venezuela is intensifying. Instead of symbolic shows of force, the United States operations now rely on precision strikes from drones, satellite-guided missiles, elite special forces raids, and now the mother of all bombs that leaves destruction in its wake. Cartel compounds once thought untouchable are being wiped out in coordinated assaults. What sort of destruction does the mother of all bombs leave in its wake? How would the cartels react to such an attack? Join us as we explore the devastating effects that followed as the United States B-2 Spirit drops. Another mother of all bombs on Venezuelan cartels. The United States military made history when it used the most powerful conventional bomb in its arsenal for the first time in combat. The weapon was the GBU-43, also known as the Massive Ordnance Air Blast Bomb. Many people called it the mother of all bombs because of its huge size and destructive power. Weighing over 21,000 pounds, the bomb was carefully pushed out of the back of a U.S. Air Force MC-130 Special Operations aircraft. The massive plane was flying over Afghanistan's eastern Nangarhar province when the order was given to strike. The target was a network of tunnels and caves in the Akin district. This area had become a stronghold for ISIS-K, the branch of the Islamic State group operating in Afghanistan. Militants there were using underground passages to hide, move weapons, and plan attacks. By dropping the bomb directly on this complex, the U.S. military aimed to destroy their hiding place and weaken their operations. When the Moab detonated, the results were devastating. According to U.S. military officials, the explosion killed at least 94 ISIS fighters. The blast was so powerful that it shook the entire region. The strike was widely seen as a show of American military strength. The use of the Moab caught the world's attention. Newspapers, television channels, and online outlets around the globe reported on the bombing. Many saw it as a message not only to ISIS, but also to other potential enemies of the United States. Analysts said it showed that under President Donald Trump, the U.S. military was willing to use its deadliest non-nuclear weapons without hesitation. Countries like North Korea were believed to have taken note of the signal of power. Now imagine what would happen if the same kind of firepower were directed at powerful drug cartels instead of ISIS. These criminal groups often build hidden labs, warehouses, and secret tunnels, much like terrorist organizations. A single strike with a weapon like the Moab could wipe out a massive drug production site in seconds. Cartel leaders, who rely on fear and secrecy, would suddenly realize that their hiding places offer no safety against such overwhelming force. It would send a chilling message to all criminal networks that their vast empires could be reduced to rubble instantly. The war on drugs, which often feels endless, might take a very different turn if cartels face the same level of military pressure once used against ISIS. When people talk about the mother of all bombs, it often gets confused with another monster in America's arsenal, the Massive Ordnance Penetrator. But these two weapons, while both huge and terrifying, are very different in design, purpose, and use on the battlefield. Todd Harrison, a defense budget expert at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C., described the Moab as a crash project. After the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks, the United States found itself facing al-Qaeda and the Taliban on unfamiliar terrain in Afghanistan. Harrison explained that this was an adversary whose tactics were uncertain and difficult to predict, and the U.S. military was willing to try almost anything to gain the upper hand. What began as a counter-terrorism campaign quickly spiraled into something far larger. The war did not go as expected, Harrison said, noting that no one imagined American forces would still be engaged in Afghanistan 15 years later. What was supposed to be a short fight became a long counterinsurgency and occupation. The Moab was never meant to be a polished long-term program. It was a quick-turn effort to meet an urgent battlefield need, not a formal procurement project. The Air Force acted as the system integrator, piecing it together from available technology, and in the end, only about 15 bombs were ever built. Interestingly, part of the bomb's design drew from technology found in Soviet-era intercontinental ballistic missiles. It was tested in Florida at Eglin Air Force Base back in 2003, but for more than a decade, it sat unused in real combat. That changed dramatically when it was finally unleashed against ISIS fighters in Afghanistan. Restarting production of the Moab today would be no simple task. Harrison pointed out that most of the original parts are no longer available, and newer components would require a redesign and fresh rounds of testing. Inflation and modern manufacturing costs would push the price far higher than the original estimates. For that reason, he believes it is unlikely that the Air Force will ever restart full-scale production, especially given the limited demand. But the Moab was never just about blowing things up. It was also about psychological warfare. Harrison emphasized that the bomb's very existence sends a signal. Developing and fielding it quickly showed potential adversaries that the U.S. was willing to innovate rapidly when faced with new threats. The idea that America could build such a massive weapon in-house, practically on the fly, complicates enemy decision-making and forces them to think twice. Retired Air Force General T. Michael "Buzz" Mosley echoed this point. He explained that the Moab was designed for wide-area effects, both physically and mentally. The sheer blast effect makes it devastating on the battlefield, but it also delivers a powerful message to anyone watching. It tells opponents and even allies that the U.S. is willing to unleash unprecedented force when needed. Mosley had firsthand experience commanding during this era. Between 2001 and 2003, he led the 9th Air Force and U.S. Central Command Air Forces at a time when the Air Force still had the BLU-82B Daisy Cutter bomb, the Moab's predecessor, deployed forward. While he did not comment on why the Moab was chosen over the massive ordnance penetrator for the ISIS strike, he did stress that both weapons were in limited supply. One thing that makes the Moab outstanding is that it is all about creating a massive air blast. As its name suggests, it is meant to explode above ground or just on softer surfaces, such as cave entrances or tunnel systems. The key here is that it does not have to burrow deep. Instead, it spreads its destructive power across a wide radius, flattening anything caught in the blast zone. On the other hand, the MOP is the Air Force's true bunker buster. This weapon was built to dig through reinforced concrete and earth to destroy hidden command posts, underground shelters, and other hardened structures. In terms of sheer size, the Moab is gigantic, tipping the scales at nearly 22,000 pounds. But the MOP is even bigger, weighing in at around 33,000 pounds, making it the largest non-nuclear bomb in America's stockpile. Yet weight alone doesn't tell the whole story. What makes the Moab so infamous is its payload. Packed with nearly 18,000 pounds of high explosives, it creates a blast equal to roughly 11 tons of TNT. In comparison, the MOP's warhead carries just over 5,000 pounds of explosives, less than a third of the Moab's punch. So why is the MOP considered the bigger bomb? Because size here is about purpose. The MOP's bulk is what allows it to punch deep into the earth before detonating, destroying underground facilities that normal bombs could never reach. The Moab, by contrast, is designed to devastate everything above ground or in shallow tunnels with overwhelming shock waves. It's not about precision burrowing, it's about unleashing fear and firepower in one enormous strike. Deployment is another key difference. The Moab is pushed out of the back of a cargo plane, specifically a C-130 aircraft, and once released, it uses its fins to guide itself toward the target. The MOP, however, is far more advanced. It is GPS-guided and designed to be carried by stealth bombers, such as the B-2 Spirit. This gives it the ability to penetrate defended airspace and deliver its deep striking payload with pinpoint accuracy. Despite this capability, the MOP has never been used in combat, while the MOAB made headlines when it was dropped in Afghanistan in 2017 against ISIS-K fighters hiding in caves. Military leaders have praised the thinking behind these weapons. Retired Air Force General T. Michael Buzz Mosley once explained that using the Moab in Afghanistan was a brilliant move given the target. According to him, commanders spend enormous amounts of time weighing the risks of collateral damage and blast effects. The Moab, despite its size, was chosen carefully because it was the right tool for the job, massive enough to collapse tunnel systems, but deployed in a way that limited unnecessary destruction. For military enthusiasts, both the Moab and MOP represent the extremes of conventional warfare. The Moab is a psychological weapon as much as it is a physical one. Its detonation shakes not just the ground, but also the confidence of anyone on the receiving end. The MOP, by contrast, is a symbol of precision and stealth, designed to remind adversaries that even the deepest bunker is not beyond America's reach. When the Air Force dropped the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan, many people immediately wondered about the price tag of such a massive weapon. Surprisingly, the cost of one Moab is far lower than most advanced missiles. According to the Air Force, each bomb is valued at around $170,000. For a weapon weighing more than 21,000 pounds and unleashing the force of 11 tons of TNT, that figure sounds almost like a bargain. But there is a catch. That price is not a modern production cost, it is a historical estimate from the mid-2000s. A defense official later explained that this figure was never the result of a traditional procurement program. Instead, it came from rough calculations made by an expert at the Air Force Research Laboratory, one of the original developers of the weapon. Much of the Moab's cost was based on spare materials that were already available, such as the bomb's casing and metals. In short, it was pieced together from what the Air Force had on hand, not manufactured through a large-scale contract. Because of this, the Moab does not have a standard price in Pentagon budget documents. Unlike fighter jets or precision missiles, it was not part of a typical research, development, and acquisition pipeline. Air Force spokeswoman Erica Yepsen once clarified that the bombs were developed, built, and tested entirely in-house. No outside research was contracted, and that meant no official procurement cost was logged in the usual way. Still, the Moab did involve some outside expertise. One of the most crucial parts of the weapon is its grid fin technology, which allows the bomb to steer itself with surprising accuracy. These lattice-style fins can guide the bomb to within less than 8 meters of its intended target, remarkable for a weapon of its size. The Pentagon brought in Dynetics Incorporated, a Huntsville, Alabama-based defense company, to help design this feature. According to a 2014 report submitted to the Senate Appropriations Committee, the Air Force first approached Dynetics in 2002 with a contract worth $35,000 to begin developing the fin concept. That relatively small investment led to one of the most important innovations. The grid fins gave the bomb the ability to maneuver through the air, ensuring that when it was released from a cargo plane, it would not simply fall blindly, but instead glide and adjust its path toward the target. Dynetics has remained tight-lipped about its role in the project. When asked about the fins, a company spokeswoman declined to comment and referred all questions to U.S. Central Command. Even Air Force officials admitted they were not entirely certain whether the estimated per-bomb cost included the fin technology or not. This uncertainty reflects how unusual the Moab program truly was. Less a polished acquisition effort and more a one-off project designed for a specific wartime need. Another mystery surrounding the Moab is how many of them exist. Officials have never released the exact figure, but reports suggest there are around 15 bombs in the current stockpile. Their exact locations, of course, remain classified. An auditor could attempt to assign a more precise value to each bomb in storage today, factoring in materials, labor, and upgrades. But the Air Force has kept those details under wraps. For military enthusiasts, this backstory highlights what makes the Moab so fascinating. It is not just its raw explosive power that makes it legendary, but also its origin as a kind of Frankenstein weapon built from spare parts, innovative fin technology, and rapid in-house development. It was designed for a very specific mission in Afghanistan, to collapse caves and strike fear into America's enemies. And it did exactly that. Its relatively low cost and unusual history only add to the mystique of the mother of all bombs. But despite its dramatic first use, there were many questions about whether the Moab would be used often in future conflicts. One issue was cost. The bomb is estimated to cost about $170,000 each. While this is not as expensive as some advanced missiles, experts pointed out that other weapons could deliver similar or even greater explosive force. For example, a single B-52 bomber can carry a payload of bombs that together equal or exceed the power of one Moab. Another problem was supply. The Air Force has only a limited number of these bombs. They were built in the early 2000s using spare parts and assembled specifically for the war in Afghanistan. Because of this, the U.S. cannot easily replace them if the stockpile is used up. This means commanders will likely save them for only very special missions. Cost may have also been a factor. Unlike the Moab, which was developed cheaply and in small numbers, the MOP program required significant investment. Harrison explained that between 2009 and 2017, the Air Force budgeted more than $572 million in research and development funding, plus $43 million in procurement for 28 bombs. That works out to more than $21 million per bomb, a staggering difference when compared to the Moab's estimated $170,000 cost. But in the fight against drug cartels, a question now arises. What happens when the mother of all bombs is added to the battlefield? Many wonder if the cartels can truly stand against a weapon of this scale. The U.S. military's choice to use such a massive bomb wasn't random. Timing played a major role, according to retired General T. Michael Mosley. He explained that the decision may have come down to the situation on the ground when all conditions were finally ready for the Moab to make the biggest impact. In other words, it wasn't just about having the weapon, but about finding the perfect moment to use it. He suggested the military might have seen an easy match, the right location, the right enemy concentration, and the right time. Still, many asked why the Moab was chosen instead of other heavy options, like the B-52 Stratofortress. The B-52 can carry more than 50 bombs, each weighing 750 pounds, and when unleashed together, their destruction is comparable to the Moab's single massive strike. Jeffrey Lewis, a professor at Middlebury College who follows arms control issues, pointed out that the B-52 could have delivered a similar level of damage while offering flexibility. So why gamble everything on one giant weapon? The Air Force's answer was simple. Officials insisted that they have many munitions at their disposal, and each one is chosen based on the target. Anne Stefanik, an Air Force spokeswoman, explained that it isn't about showing off the biggest bomb, but about using the right tool at the right time. For the caves and underground drug labs hidden deep within cartel territory, the Moab seemed to be the ideal choice. Its blast penetrates deep into the earth, collapsing tunnels and wiping out hidden operations that smaller bombs might miss. This move also sent a psychological message. For the U.S., dropping the Moab would not be just about destroying a target. It was about showing cartels and the world that America has weapons they cannot possibly match. The nickname alone, Mother of All Bombs, creates an image of unstoppable force, spreading fear even before it detonates. It tells enemies that no place is truly safe, not even underground. The U.S. military has long believed that overwhelming power can break the spirit of its opponents, and the Moab fit that belief perfectly. Yet the debate continues. Is it necessary to use such a weapon on cartel strongholds, or is it more about making a statement? Critics argue that smaller, more precise strikes could have done the job without the massive display. Supporters counter that the Moab would not only destroy the target, but also send a clear message that future cartel expansions into underground networks would not survive. Either way, such a strike would reveal just how far the U.S. is willing to go in the war on drugs. For the cartels, the challenge is now clear. They have long relied on secrecy, tunnels, and hidden labs to protect their empire. But with the Moab in play, those defenses seem fragile. No bunker is too deep, no tunnel too safe, when a weapon designed for military warfare comes crashing down on them. The real question is whether cartels can adapt quickly enough, or if this marks the beginning of a new phase where their underground world is no longer untouchable. Deep in Venezuela, cartels like Tren de Aragua and the Cartel of the Suns have thrived in the shadows, guarded by power and corruption. Their operations stretch across borders, moving drugs and money with ruthless efficiency. But when America's B-2 Spirit takes flight, the equation changes. Nearly invisible to radar, the stealth bomber carries the mother of all bombs, built to erase strongholds in seconds. What follows changed the rules of engagement in the hemisphere. Everyone talks about Mexican cartels, the Gulf Cartel, Los Metros, Los Rojos, Sinaloa, Los Chapitos, La Melliza, and of course the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG. Their names dominate the headlines. Their battles spill across Mexico's streets, and their reach extends deep into the United States. But while the world fixates on Mexico, there's another front in the narco wars that hardly ever makes the news: Venezuela. Venezuela is home to some of the most dangerous and least understood cartels in the hemisphere. Chief among them is Tren de Aragua, the country's most powerful homegrown criminal syndicate. Born in Venezuela's prison system, the group has transformed from a local gang into a multinational criminal enterprise. Human trafficking, extortion, kidnapping, and large-scale drug smuggling are just the beginning. Tren de Aragua has successfully projected its power abroad, spreading tentacles into Colombia, Peru, Chile, and even as far as Spain. And then there's the shadowy network known as the Cartel of the Suns. Unlike Tren de Aragua, this isn't a ragtag army of street enforcers or prison-born killers. The Cartel of the Suns is something far more dangerous. A drug trafficking organization composed of high-ranking Venezuelan officials with deep ties to the military and intelligence services. Its name comes from the sun-shaped insignia worn by Venezuelan generals, many of whom are implicated in running cocaine routes in partnership with Colombian cartels and even foreign terrorist organizations. Investigations over the years have linked its operations to none other than Nicolas Maduro himself, the sitting president of Venezuela. Together, Tren de Aragua and the Cartel of the Suns form a one-two punch unlike anything else in Latin America. One cartel rules the streets with brutal violence, while the other enjoys state-level protection and resources. That combination has allowed Venezuela to evolve into a key hub for cocaine trafficking, rivaling even Colombia. But here's where things get even more explosive. Recently, these Venezuelan cartels have been formally designated as international terrorist organizations. This isn't just a label, it changes the entire game. When a group is listed as a terrorist entity, the United States can treat them the same way it treats ISIS or Al-Qaeda. That means not just sanctions and indictments, but military force. Airstrikes, raids, and covert operations all become options on the table. For years, Washington has accused Maduro's government of turning Venezuela into a narco state, but diplomatic constraints kept the response limited to economic measures and covert interdictions at sea. Now, with the terrorist designation, the gloves are off. These cartels are no longer seen as just criminal enterprises. They are treated as threats to U.S. national security, which brings us to the operation you're about to see unfold. Venezuela is about to learn what it means to face the B-2 Spirit, America's stealth bomber, a weapon so advanced that even calling it an aircraft doesn't quite do it justice. To the untrained eye, the B-2 looks almost alien, a flying wing with no tail, no vertical stabilizers, and barely a silhouette against the night sky. To radar operators on the ground, it looks like nothing at all. Nicknamed the Beast, the B-2 was built for one purpose: to slip through the most heavily defended airspace on Earth and strike without warning. Its radar-absorbent skin and low observable profile make it virtually invisible to traditional detection systems. Even infrared tracking struggles because the B-2's engines are buried deep inside the fuselage, masking heat signatures and reducing the thermal trail it leaves in the sky. If you think you can find it by pointing sensors into the heavens, you're already too late. And when it arrives with surgical precision. The B-2 Spirit can carry more than 40,000 pounds of ordnance hidden within its internal bays. From GBU-31J dams, GPS-guided bombs, to the massive GBU-57 bunker busters designed to penetrate fortified structures, the aircraft is capable of dismantling an entire drug complex in seconds. This is why the B-2 Spirit is most suitable for the Venezuelan mission. No other aircraft in the arsenal can deliver such power with such discretion. The journey alone is a feat of endurance. From Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, the B-2s launch under the cover of darkness. These aren't short-range sorties. With a maximum range of 11,000 kilometers before refueling, the Spirit is built for global missions. But even so, a Venezuelan strike requires mid-air tankers at carefully chosen points. High above the Atlantic, in a silent rendezvous, KC-135 Stratotankers extend the wings of the beast, topping off its fuel for the long flight south. Inside the cockpit, just 2 crew members control this Leviathan. Sitting side by side, they rely on advanced digital displays and fly-by-wire controls to navigate one of the most sophisticated aircraft ever built. The workload is immense, long hours over open ocean, constant radio silence, every move rehearsed to perfection. Missions like this demand more than skill. They demand stamina, discipline, and the ability to function inside a pressure cooker. As they close in on Venezuelan airspace, the Spirit descends to low altitude, hugging terrain with advanced navigation systems that allow it to fly covertly just above the ground. Venezuelan radar operators, already stretched thin, scan their scopes for any sign of intruders. They find nothing. The beast is already inside. The target, a cartel-run drug production facility nestled deep in the Venezuelan interior, guarded by foot soldiers and protected under the silent watch of the Cartel of the Suns. Intelligence suggests the lab is pushing thousands of kilos of cocaine onto international routes every month. The strike isn't just symbolic. It aimed to cripple a vital artery of the cartel's empire. The Spirit lines up for release. Bomb bay doors open silently against the rush of air. At that moment, Venezuela's most secretive cartel stronghold has no idea that the end is already falling from the sky. With pinpoint GPS guidance, 2 JDAMs detach, plummeting through the night before hitting their mark with surgical accuracy. The earth shakes. Fireball after fireball tore through concrete and steel. In less than a minute, what had taken years to build would be reduced to rubble and flame. By the time Venezuelan air defenses scrambled to respond, the beast would already be vanishing back into the night, undetectable, untouchable, and gone. Only the wreckage left behind testifies to its presence. Each B-2 Spirit cost nearly $2 billion, making it one of the most expensive machines ever built. Maintaining it requires another $20 million annually, with teams of engineers dedicated to keeping its stealth skin pristine. It is not a tool used lightly, but when it flies, it carries with it a message. No fortress, no cartel, no narco state is beyond America's reach. This isn't just imagination. It echoes a precedent already carved deep beneath the mountains of Iran at Fordo. Codenamed Operation Midnight Hammer, the strike reads like a story made of steel, night, and careful plans. It was a top-secret precision attack on Iran's nuclear facilities that began overnight. Officials said it was the largest strike using B-2 bombers in history and the longest flight involving the fleet since 2001. The mission moved in silence, with many parts working together so the whole would come down like a single, precise hammer blow. The size of the mission is hard to imagine at first. More than 125 aircraft took part. That number alone makes the event feel huge. The cast included 7 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers that flew from the continental United States shortly after midnight Eastern Time. Those B-2s were refueled multiple times in midair as they flew for 18 hours to reach their targets. Other planes had roles you might not see at first. B-2s used as decoys to draw attention one way, while the real bombers went another. Refueling tankers that kept the long flight alive, fighter escorts that watched for threats, and drones that gave intelligence, surveillance, and target acquisition. Each part was small on its own, but together they made the mission possible. At the center of the attack were the bombs called Massive Ordnance Penetrators, known as MOPs. The mission included the first use of these bombs in combat. Before this, they had only been used in testing. Saying first use carries weight. A weapon moves from the lab into real life. That is a large step. Each MOP measures about 20 feet long, weighs 30,000 pounds, and is capable of penetrating 200 feet deep inside a target before exploding. Those numbers tell a story without need for many extra words. Think of a 20-foot object, longer than a small bus. Think of 30,000 pounds, a weight that belongs to a heavy truck or a small building's worth of material. And think of 200 feet of penetration, deep enough to go through many layers of earth or concrete and reach far inside an underground space. In simple, vivid terms, a MOP is a very long, very heavy tool built to punch through layers that most bombs simply cannot reach. It is not a device meant for a flash in the sky. It is a device made to go down, down, and strike what hides below. Just after 2 a.m. Iran time, the B-2 bombers began dropping 14 MOP bombs in strikes on two of Iran's nuclear facilities, the Natanz and Fordo sites. That moment must have felt like the snap of a giant hinge being forced open. In total, 13 B-2 bombers took off around the same time on Saturday morning from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, according to Kane. Of those, 6 B-2s were sent to the Pacific island of Guam as decoys. The other 7, the ones that carried out the strikes, quietly headed east. Those 7 kept little communication to avoid detection. Silence was part of their armor. The human picture is as large as the hardware. Crews flew for many hours, refueling more than once. Planners set up decoys and routes. Pilots and support teams took part in what is, in truth, a long chain of careful choices. Every refueling in midair, every radio silence, and every decoy flight was a link in a chain. Break one link and the mission could change. In the press room at the Pentagon after the attacks, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth spoke in clear, hard words. Iran's nuclear ambitions have been obliterated, he said during a press briefing. That kind of language is absolute and final sounding. It is meant to show that the action had a single, clear aim, and that goal, according to the words given, was reached. And yet the mission's neat lines, craft, bombs, timing, and words also point to the strange mix of modern war. High technology paired with long human hours, prayer-like patience before a strike, and a sudden heavy action in the dark. A bomber that uses stealth seeks to be unseen. A MOP seeks to be unstoppable once it is on a path downward. The mission mixed both stealth and force, the B-2s to slip in unseen, and the MOPs to go deep and smash what was buried. The timing mattered. The B-2s left shortly after midnight Eastern Time. They flew for 18 hours. The bombs fell just after 2 a.m., Iran time. Those hours are lives of their own. The long hum of engines, the quiet work of crews, the dark stretch of a globe passed over. For the people on the ground near the targets, the strikes were a matter of moments. Just before the bombers let loose their loads, 24 submarine-fired cruise missiles were launched toward a third nuclear site inside the country. Those missiles rode low and slow across the water and sky. They were fired first, but because they fly more slowly and had a long trip to make, they did not hit until a little after the heavy bombs from the long-range stealth planes had already fallen. That timing, missiles launched from beneath the waves, then heavy bombers passing overhead, mattered. It was not a random flare of violence. It was a layered strike, a plan of pieces meant to work in order. The submarine shot its missiles to help shape the fight on the ground. The big stealthy bombers carried the largest weapons. Both kinds of weapons moved toward the same kind of target. Hardened, buried facilities built to survive ordinary attacks. The result was a hard hammer of different tools hitting one goal from different angles. On the morning after the strikes, people watched for the machines to return. All 13 of the stealth bombers that had moved in the operation were expected back at their base in Missouri early Sunday afternoon. But not all the planes took the same path. 6 of them had been sent as decoys toward a Pacific island, a move meant to draw eyes the wrong way, while the real strike group crept east. Whether those decoys ever touched down on that distant island was not clear. The 7 that carried out the strikes, the ones that flew quietly east and kept radio silence to avoid detection, were the ones that dropped the heaviest bombs. The president spoke to the nation later that night from the White House. He stood with senior leaders behind him and spoke in a voice that meant to close a chapter. A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime, he said. He named the aim, plainly, to destroy the country's ability to enrich uranium and to stop what he called a looming nuclear threat. He declared the strikes a spectacular military success and said the facilities had been completely and totally obliterated. The speech was sharp and simple. It told a story of final, crushing force. Those words were meant to show certainty, but people who watch these things closely know that certainty after a strike is a process, not a single sentence. Officials on the scene said the initial read from the field was that the guided weapons had hit the places they were meant to hit and had the effect the planners wanted. Yet a full picture of damage, especially to underground hardened facilities, takes time. Experts must look at before and after images, signals, and when possible, on-the-ground checks. The immediate claim of destruction is a strong one. The full truth of what was broken or left standing will be known only after patient work. Officials also stressed the careful edge of the plan. They said the operation had been the product of long weeks and months of positioning and preparation so that everything would be in place when the order came. The plan used misdirection, secrecy, and what was called the highest level of operational security. Few people in the Capitol were told the timing or details. Congressional leaders reportedly learned that the mission had begun only after it was underway. The strike force moved with a small crew in each bomber, 2 people per plane, and those crews flew in and out without detection, according to commanders. Stealth and silence were the armor of the night. One striking note in the day's account was the near lack of response. The defenders on the ground did not launch fighters or surface-to-air missiles as the strike unfolded. Prior to the attack, Allied strikes had reportedly spent days degrading the country's air defense systems, destroying much of the fighter fleet and leaving airfields badly damaged. Those earlier blows did not come from the main strike force that night, but they shaped the battlefield by limiting the target's options. With the sky made quieter by those losses, the bomber crews found fewer threats to dodge and fewer alarms to set off. Commanders emphasized that the mission was aimed at nuclear capability, not at civilians or a change of government. They said no troops or civilian structures were targeted. The message, officials said, was intended to be surgical. Remove the means of a bomb while leaving the larger political map in place. At the same time, leaders said that public and private channels were being used to offer the country a chance to come to the table and negotiate afterward. In other words, the strike was meant to be a hard stop, not an all-out attempt to remake a country. The night's pace also showed how modern war moves beyond the single strike. A submarine beneath the waves launched missiles. Stealth bombers flew long, refueled many times, and dropped heavy ordnance designed for deep buried targets. Fighters and tankers circled to shield and sustain the mission. Drones watched and fed eyes to those in the sky. Each piece had a job, and each job fit into a chain. Break the chain, and the plan could fail. Troops in the wider region were left in a tense state. Some units were not warned in advance of the attacks. Commanders elevated protection measures across the area, especially at key bases and in nearby states. When a strike this large lands, the ripple of worry and the need for protection spread fast. Forces on the ground prepare for possible reprisals, for accidents, and for the hard work of keeping people and systems safe while leaders sort through the political fallout. Finally, the night reminded everyone that in modern conflict, the line between war and politics grows thin. A president's words, a commander's plan, the silent run of a submarine, and the hush of a bomber's radio all meet in a tight, sharp window. The words used afterward, of obliteration, of prevention, of no intent to change a regime, become part of a story told to the world. Yet that story is not the whole truth. It is a version chosen for now. The quiet after the storm is not empty. Assessments will continue. Images will be analyzed. Leaders will watch for reaction. and the people who live near the broken sites will begin to count the cost. For a few hours on one long night, a vast set of machines and plans converge to strike deep and hard. The immediate act is done. The consequences are only just beginning to unfold. Now, in preparation for a possible attack, the Venezuelan government announced that more than 4.5 million militia members would be prepared, activated, and armed to patrol the streets from north to south, east to west. Imagine lines of civilians turned into fighters, neighborhood watch groups flipped into armed units, and whole cities threaded with checkpoints. The plan calls these forces peace squadrons and ties them together with police and military units to guard the capital and patrol local blocks. The promise, nobody will ever touch the nation. The reality, a society rehearsing for conflict. The announcement came after reports that naval warships, including guided missile destroyers, have taken positions near the country's waters and that thousands of foreign troops have been moved into the region. In Washington, leaders have been pressing a campaign to choke off drug trafficking, and they have raised the reward for information leading to the arrest of the country's leader, doubling the bounty to $50 million. At the same time, authorities say they seized more than $700 million in assets tied to the leader's inner circle, private jets, vehicles, and other property. The message from outside was clear. Pressure on the regime would grow, with money, law, and military presence all in play. These events are being spun in stark terms on both sides. The government in the capital called the moves provocative and hostile. It answered by activating the militia and arming local patrols. The leadership's language has been blunt and theatrical. Militia members, prepared, activated, and armed, will march through cities, squadrons will guard neighborhoods, and the entire country will be organized into defensive quadrants. The rhetoric is meant to reassure supporters and to show that the state can mobilize most of its people at a moment's notice. Why such a heavy turn toward arms? The official line from the other side frames it as a law and order operation. Washington says it is going after drug traffickers who move narcotics into the United States and has accused the government of ties to major drug networks. The punishment has taken the form of asset seizures, sanctions, and the large reward for capture. The stated aim to cut down the flow of drugs and to deny those accused of trafficking their safe havens and money. But the posture goes beyond courts and dollars. Tariffs and economic penalties are being used to squeeze outside buyers of the nation's oil and gas. Military assets have been moved into the neighborhood, and a large bounty now hangs like a prize over the leader's head. The combination, law enforcement, economic pain, and ships at sea, reads to many like a pressure campaign that could become a pressure cooker. Inside the country, the politics are raw. The government says it is under attack and that all defenses must be set in motion. It accuses foreign powers of waging a campaign to delegitimize and topple the regime. Outside critics point to a history of disputed elections, a collapsing economy, and a ruling circle accused of enrichment and criminal ties. The capital has not had formal relations with the White House since 2019, and the current bitter standoff has only hardened both sides' view of the other. That deep distrust makes talks harder and threats more dangerous. What does mobilizing 4.5 million people look like on the ground? Picture street corners turned into watch posts, volunteers patrolling with radios and sometimes with weapons, local committees working with the police to keep patrols covered. The peace squadrons promise a mix of forces, police, military, and community groups that will patrol together. In theory, such a mix could help maintain order. In practice, arming so many people risks more violence, more checkpoints, and more friction with neighbors and travelers. Where there are arms and tension, small clashes can spin into bigger incidents. For the wider region, the risk of misstep is real. When ships mass, bounties fly, and governments arm citizens, the chance of a small incident sparking a larger fight grows. A mistaken radar contact, a firefight at a checkpoint, or even an accident at sea can become the spark that sets off wider clashes. Neighbors watch nervously, traders pause, migrant flows may rise again, and the political temperature in capitals around the world spikes as leaders ask, will the crisis move from bluster to an actual military clash? Questions also swirl about the long-term effect of the pressure campaign. Will the stepped-up legal and economic actions push the leadership to change course? Or will they deepen the regime's survival instincts, leading to more repression at home and more alliances with shadowy smuggling networks abroad? When a government is cornered, some rulers harden and cling to power more fiercely. Others make concessions. Which path unfolds depends on a tangle of incentives: the elite's calculations, the army's loyalties, the public's patience, and the reach of outside pressure. Then there is the strange theater of rewards and seizures. A bounty, now at $50 million, turns a political fight into a public hunt. It signals determination and offers a concrete grab for those seeking to turn information into cash. Asset seizures strip financial support and can choke off the means to buy loyalty. But such moves also reverberate through ordinary life. When planes, homes, and bank accounts vanish, businesses pause and people feel the squeeze. Economic pain often hits the poor hardest, even when the stated target is an elite inner circle. Public messaging pushes both sides into simple stories. The government says it is defending sovereignty and resisting a foreign plot. The other side says it is fighting a crime that reaches far beyond borders, using a toolkit of law, money, and military posture. Each narrative finds its audience, and each hardened tale makes compromise harder. In the space between these narratives live millions of people who mostly want safe streets, steady work, and enough food on the table. Mexican cartels were once untouchable as they ran their operations from the comfort of their underground labs, protected by gunmen. But when U.S. forces unleashed tanks and drones on them in an attack that destroyed a fentanyl lab with surgical accuracy, that illusion of invincibility faded into nothingness. Now, the cartel gangs have spiraled into what is probably the most chaotic war they have faced. How did a single strike cause one of the deadliest wars in modern history? And can Mexico contain it? Join us as we unveil how U.S. fighter tanks struck at once, destroying a cartel drug lab. The Sinaloa cartel has trapped Mexico's northern state in a violent siege, leaving a trail of bodies and disappearances as authorities struggle to restore peace. Over the decades, Mexico's most feared drug lords built empires powerful enough and designed to resist law enforcement and survive any attack. When one mentioned cartel leaders, Rafael Caro Quintero, the Trevino Morales brothers, and Vicente Curio Fuentes immediately come to mind. More than mere traffickers, these three figures were architects of transnational criminal states. They built their respective cartels from the traditional street-level drug operations, transforming them into military-style organizations with facilities buried deep underground, encrypted networks, and global supply chains. They've all been nabbed by authorities, but if you think that was enough to stop them, then you can't be more wrong. Let's start with the chief. The foundation of modern Mexican drug trafficking was laid by Rafael Caro Quintero, also known as the Narco of Narcos. In the 1980s, he created the routes that moved cocaine from Colombia through Mexico and into the United States. In a way, it can be said that he created a blueprint that others would follow for decades. He was arrested for the murder of DEA agent Enrique Camarena, for which he spent years in prison. He was released in 2013 due to an illegal technicality. Normally, you'd expect that someone like that would disappear, but that wasn't the case for Quintero. Instead of disappearing, he rebuilt his criminal network from underground hideouts in Sinaloa. When authorities were hot on his tail again, he used satellite internet, encrypted phones, and secret tunnels to avoid capture. If you've ever heard that Mexico's justice system struggled to contain figures whose power extended beyond prison walls, Quintero was a perfect example. Then there's the Trevino Morales brothers, Miguel and Omar, who turned Los Zetas into one of the most violent cartels in history. They had a bit of an edge because of their backgrounds in Mexico's elite military units. They came into the criminal world with battle tactics. They had foot soldiers who drove armored trucks, used night vision gear, and carried out coordinated attacks like the military. Many cities in northeastern Mexico lived in perpetual fear of Los Zetas because they taxed businesses as if they were the government. They ran kidnapping rings and eliminated rivals with military efficiency. To put into perspective, their cartel operated more like a rogue army than a gang, and their military discipline made them one of the most challenging threats for authorities to confront. While the brothers held Los Zetas, Vicente Curio Fuentes ruled the Juarez cartel with a ruthless hand. After taking over from his brother, known as the Lord of the Skies, he transformed Ciudad Juarez into one of the most violent cities on earth. From 2008 to 2012, more than 10,000 people were killed in turf wars as his cartel fought for control of the bridges linking Juarez to El Paso, Texas. The cartel's strength came not just from violence, but from architecture. They built vast underground facilities that remained invisible to local police and aerial surveillance for years. Inside the bunker, there are living quarters, safe room for keeping weapons, and a command center with multiple computer systems and satellite phones that could rival a modern military mini-command center. To add to that, they even had a medical bay for treating wounded cartel members. That way, they wouldn't have to expose themselves to the public. For years, these fortresses made it nearly impossible for authorities to disrupt production, especially in areas where local officials were either bought off or too afraid to intervene. According to Inside Crime, the Sinaloa and Jalisco New Generation cartels now control over 60% of global fentanyl production. This dominance is supported by a network of labs shielded from detection and defended by private security forces. Formerly led by Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, Sinaloa is one of Mexico's oldest and most powerful drug trafficking groups, with considerable influence in the Mexican government and public institutions. In addition to fentanyl trafficking, the group engages in extortion, migrant smuggling, oil and mineral theft, prostitution, and the weapons trade. With strongholds in nearly half of Mexico's states, particularly those along the Pacific coast in the northwest and near the country's southern and northern borders, and operations in at least 47 countries, it has a larger international footprint than any of its Mexican rivals. Its labs also produce way more fentanyl than any other cartel in Mexico. For years, they remained almost untouchable. But after President-elect Donald Trump threatened tariffs if the country didn't stop drugs from crossing the border, Mexico's security forces doubled down on their efforts to tackle cartels. They announced their largest seizure of fentanyl ever, which was over 20 million doses of the drug. U.S. authorities also seized nearly 10,000 kilograms of fentanyl, much of it traced back to Mexican super labs. These facilities are often equipped with chemical shielding, surveillance systems, and quick response teams, allowing them to evade detection until now. But recent advances in technology are shifting the balance. Criminal groups have had to adjust to the new conditions on the ground. Fearing law enforcement raids or attacks by their rivals, they're moving their labs around more often than usual and producing drugs in new locations. But they don't have as much cover as before. With the development of spy satellites that can detect heat patterns from hidden structures, even dense jungle canopies are not very safe. Drones with infrared sensors and AI-driven analysis can map out entire compounds in real time. Communication intercepts provide insight into how drugs are moved and stored. These tools, once reserved for tracking terrorist cells in the Middle East, have become essential in locating cartel infrastructure. What was once invisible is now visible, and this revelation has changed the game. Still, technology alone cannot dismantle an empire built on fear. These cartels depend on local influence, and that influence runs deep. Cartel leaders in many regions are seen not just as criminals, but also as providers. They fund schools, repair roads, and offer jobs. This social control makes them harder to dislodge than a conventional enemy. Even when key figures are arrested, new leaders quickly step in, often more violent than their predecessors. Arrests and seizures disrupt operations temporarily, but without systemic change, the cartels adapt and return stronger. The United States understood that hitting the cartels would require more than arrests and extraditions. It needed to find their weak spots and exploit them with precision. The fall of their hidden strongholds began when those weaknesses were exposed through surveillance and data. As satellites traced heat signatures and drones followed convoys, the once untouchable cartels became visible targets. This realization led American policymakers to consider a more aggressive strategy rooted in military doctrine rather than civilian law enforcement. The collapse of cartel secrecy did not happen overnight. It was the result of years of intelligence gathering and technological development. But once the veil was lifted, the strategic landscape shifted. The These fortified empires could now be mapped, monitored, and when necessary, eliminated. This was the beginning of the end for criminal organizations that had thrived on invisibility. Now that the world had eyes inside cartel territory, the question was no longer whether they could be reached, but how far the United States was willing to go. That answer came on January 20th, 2025, when President Trump signed an executive order that redefined the legal status of these organizations and unlocked new tools to combat them. In July 2025, the United States executed one of the most precise and secretive military operations in its war on drugs. And they didn't use jets. They used ground-based weapons believed to be old-fashioned. The military used a seamless integration of the Phoenix drone and a tank so precise it made other modern artillery into a joke. The drone took the forefront, scanning the dense jungle within which the cartel lab was located. It spotted armed guards parading around the facility, showing the seriousness of the operation. The Phoenix drone transmitted all information to the crew positioned nearby, ready to strike. 17 kilometers behind the front, the M109 Paladin howitzer stood ready, its 155mm cannon loaded. The crew focused on the targeting data streaming in from the Phoenix drone. In truth, the precision with which the crew operated is something to admire. The fire control system absorbed the drone's real-time intelligence, calculating firing solutions for 7 cartel vehicles stationed 20 kilometers away. The ballistic computer of the tank ingested over 130 battlefield parameters in real time and rapidly produced a firing solution that ordinarily took older systems minutes to assemble. With this speed, the Paladin was primed to deliver its opening blow within just 30 seconds. At 0614 hours, all the preparations came to the fore as the Paladin opened fire. If any critics of military tanks were present, they would have found themselves in shock as the Paladin showcased the full potential of multiple round simultaneous impact, or MRSI, something that you probably don't expect from a tank. Everyone knows that traditional artillery lands shells sequentially and allows for enemy reaction, but MRSI is different. It coordinates the firing of several rounds at different trajectories and velocities so that within a 2-second window, all shells will have arrived. This unexpected approach caught the cartel off guard and denied them any sort of warning or time to seek cover. Again, the precision is something to be praised. In seconds, 6 shells had left the barrel in rapid succession, each programmed for a unique flight path. As the attack struck the targets, the impact on the cartel formation was clear, immediate, and severe. 2 vehicles that were closest were obliterated, literally. Their armored glasses were breached like a hot knife through butter, and the engines welcomed flames. 1 vehicle, identified by the Phoenix drone as the highest threat because of its contents, blew into pieces. The sudden destruction of these key vehicles was a dent in whatever courage the cartel had. The patrol guards scrambled for cover, which had already been blown open anyway. Now that the vehicles that contained contents capable of igniting a war between 2 countries had been destroyed, another M109 times directly for the lab, having received coordinates from the Phoenix drone, the crew let hell loose. The heavy shells landed one after the other on the heavily protected lab. It may not be wrong to say in this operation, the strike power of the Paladin was similar to the bunker-busting power of the GBU-72B. The shells ignored all the defenses that were supposed to protect the lab, tearing through steel like ripping a piece of paper with bare hands. In mere seconds, the lab that previously housed cartel drugs and weapons, and from which fentanyl and other drugs were tested, was up in flames. In every aspect of the strike, you could see that the Paladin held a clear edge. This wasn't the usual tank that everybody knew. While traditional artillery from the past still relied on manual calculations and required about 2 to 4 minutes to engage, the Paladin's automated systems compressed the entire process to less than half a minute. This speed was a technical advantage, but more than that, it was a clear upgrade in battlefield doctrine. The cartel was caught completely unawares. They had zero chance to disperse or reposition before the shells landed. By the time they could react, the damage was done. The range also maximized the effect. Beyond that, it served as protection for the Paladin's crew. Having a reach of up to 30 kilometers using standard rounds, The howitzer operated in a way that even if the armed cartels wanted to fight back, it would be completely useless. airspace, the distance allowed U.S. forces to strike decisively while minimizing exposure to return fire. The integration with the Phoenix drone's data gave the Paladin the situational awareness of an aerial observer, translating sensor intelligence into immediate lethal action. How did the cartel take it? Not good. The psychological effect on them was huge. The abrupt loss of their armored vehicles, as well as the fact that no warning was given whatsoever, completely destroyed their confidence. They had lost the sense of security provided by their armor and guards in mere seconds. Just like that, a sophisticated lab meant for the testing of illegal drugs was torn so effortlessly. Not only did the Paladin strike inflict physical losses, but it also disrupted their cohesion and morale. The destruction happened to only a single lab, but the message was clear. The cartels were no longer safe in the shadows. There are reports from local journalists and international watchdog groups talking about the growing fear among cartel operatives. According to the New York Times, competing factions within the Sinaloa cartel have banked on the chaos, and now they are challenging each other's authority. Now, cartel war in Mexico has escalated and Sinaloa is in chaos. The cartel stronghold is no stranger to such violence, but the ongoing fighting for control over the most powerful organized crime syndicate in the Western Hemisphere is unprecedented. The spike in violence happened when Ismael El Mayo Zambada, who founded the Sinaloa cartel with Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, was detained along with one of Guzman's sons after a small plane touched down in the U.S. El Mayo accused El Chapo's son of betraying him and delivering him to U.S. authorities. Now a faction led by El Mayo's son is waging war against another led by the two sons of El Chapo, who remain free in Mexico. The Sinaloa cartel has extended its reach beyond the Americas to Europe, Asia, and Africa, creating a multi-billion-dollar industry now up for grabs. The power struggle between the old leadership and an ambitious new generation seeking absolute control has turned Sinaloa into a veritable war zone. As of September last year, at least 46 people had been killed and 60 were missing, according to local nonprofit groups, citing figures from Mexico's National Defense Ministry. On social media, Sinaloan users are sharing harrowing accounts of fear and violence in the state. Masked men wielding military-grade weapons have taken control of the streets, with the sound of gunfire constantly echoing through the region. For many people in Mexico, August 10 was a quiet Sunday like any other. But the story was different in Sinaloa. For the inhabitants, it was no ordinary Sunday. It was a day when 17 homicides were committed, one every 85 minutes. It was so terrible that the Mexican government declared it was the most violent day of 2025 in Sinaloa, exceeding every other state in the country. The killings were some of the latest in a spate of violence that has gripped the state after the surprise arrest of Ismael El Mayo Zambada, who authorities say is a longtime leader of the Sinaloa cartel. An analysis of public data showed that ever since the capture of this kingpin, homicides in Sinaloa have risen by a lot, like more than 400% increase. Before El Mayo's arrest, clashes between the cartel's factions were sporadic, but the unusual circumstances of his capture have escalated tensions. Now both the Maitos and Chapitos have stepped up their offensives to seize key territories, Dittmar explains. ACLI data shows a sharp increase in violence in early September, when analysts agree the war officially began. The violence in Sinaloa actually goes beyond the statistics. It has upended the daily lives of the residents. In Culiacan, the constant fear of armed clashes has forced large chains and small family businesses to reduce their hours or shut down completely. One particularly touching account was of a small business owner who operated her grandmother's decades-old restaurant in the Sinaloan capital, who was forced to close her business doors. When interviewed, she explained that there were days when there was maybe just one customer because people don't go out at night. To this day, they still don't. She feared for her safety given the city's insecurity. Like many others in Culiacan, Sonia, as she preferred to be called, and her family have had to adapt to a new normal, imposing a self-curfew. According to her, the citizens decided months ago to only go out at certain times. At first, between September and December last year, it was like a self-imposed rule because people were afraid to go out. Normally, nights and early mornings were most violent, but now the entire day sees violence. There are videos shared on social media and verified showing scenes that have become increasingly common in Culiacan and other cities across the state. Shootouts in broad daylight, clashes between armed groups and security forces, and burning vehicles in residential neighborhoods. It has gone from shootouts to gruesome deaths. In May, the body of a man was found hanging from a nearby bridge alongside a narco message. Just 1 month after that, a human head was left near a tourist site in Culiacan. And 2 weeks after, several police officers were seriously injured in a nearby ambush. Exactly 1 year after El Mayo's arrest, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said her government was taking action. She claimed that they were working and would bring peace to Sinaloa. But for someone like Sonia, that promise feels distant. The Mexican government has piled thousands of soldiers into Sinaloa, but has proven unable to curb the violence. The last 2 months have been the most violent yet. Overall, the war has left nearly 3,000 dead or missing. The strike by the U.S. weakened the cartel by no small means. What happened in Sinaloa is not the end. Far from it, it's only the beginning. As long as there's demand and profit, the cartel will endure. The question is not whether they can be stopped, but whether the two countries will give what it takes to stop them. Thanks for watching. While you are still here, click on the link on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there.